Welcome, everybody. College football week 1 is here. I'm Joe at the Game House, and today we're going to take a look at 5 things to watch in college football week 1. Okay, college football, 5 things to watch in week 1. This will be an article that kind of goes over maybe some of the top games to watch, some of the top players, some of the top matchups. We couldn't make it 5 games to watch, but I like to have a little bit more liberty with what I can say here in this. But there will be a lot of focus on which games are happening every week. Let's get it started for week 1. We're all excited for football to be back in a big, big way on Labor Day weekend. We have the LSU versus FSU rematch. Last season, great game, crazy all over the place. There was, special teams mistakes. There was regular, offensive mistakes. Crazy game, ended up being 24-23 win for Florida State. After that point, Florida State went on to go 9-3. LSU went on to win the SEC West and make the SEC championship game. It really reset expectations for these programs as, people were questioning Mike Norvell as the head coach of Florida State. People were questioning whether Brian Kelly could fit as LSU's head coach. So, why this game will be fun this year after such a good game last year? First of all, you got the whole rematch game, close game, good programs, historic programs. But on the field, we have LSU with 11 returning starters. They also hit the transfer portal hard, brought in guys like Omar Speights to play linebacker next to Harold Perkins. Jaden Daniels is back at quarterback. They should have a pretty good offensive line. Malik Neighbors, who did make some mistakes last year in this game, specifically on special teams, he now comes into more of a prominent receiving role for this offense. Really excited about this team overall, but this is a very big first game, obviously. Florida State, 14 returning starters. They also hit the transfer portal pretty hard, too. Keon Coleman is a wide receiver who's going to join Johnny Wilson. They have Jordan Travis, a quarterback, who returns. Trey Benson, who transferred in last year from Oregon, should be the go-to guy this year in that running back room. And then on defense, you have Jared Verse, who's all over the field. Could have gone to the NFL draft last year, but decided to return and could make Florida State go from a very good team to possibly national title contender if he's able to show up in big games. So, game has major stakes, I think, is the main thing here. Players who will be playing in the NFL, lots of players who will be playing in the NFL will be in this game, but major stakes in terms of college football playoff. Whoever wins this game should be the number one team in the polls next week. That's not how they really work. I mean, really, they're going to keep the teams they ranked highly, but this will be the biggest game of the week. The one that will make the team who wins the most battle tested. So, when we start ranking teams, talk about college football playoff bracketology later on this season, it'll be interesting to note that this team will be the biggest win. This should be the biggest win in week 1. Maybe some upsets happen, but this should be the biggest win for a lot of the teams who are vying for college football playoffs this season. All right, we also have the Florida versus Utah rematch again this year. They played last year in Gainesville. We saw an incredible performance by Anthony Richardson, which was able to lead the Gators to a win on their home turf. There was also some doubt about Billy Napier last year. Could he be the guy at Florida? And he's really answered those questions. I think last year doing okay, and this year maybe he's trying to take a step forward, but they do have a lot of turnover, so maybe it won't happen. So, Florida has to travel to Utah this season. Cam Rising's back for his 3rd season, leading Utah 2 straight Rose Bowls. Knee injury, so he may not play. That's something to note heading into this game. Utah should still probably be favored even if he's out, but that leaves way more question marks. They do have 11 returning starters. Defensively, watch out for Cole Bishop, one of the best safeties in the country. Florida returns just 7 starters, puts them in a more questionable place than Utah, but those injuries maybe will equalize the game a little bit. Wisconsin transfer Graham Mertz will be starting at quarterback for Florida. Started off really well at Wisconsin that first year, especially that first game he played. Things didn't really develop that well for him, and now he's getting a new chance. There's a lot of people, it seems like, who are pretty high on Graham Mertz, but until we see it, it's hard for me to believe it. They do have some stars on defense, including Jason Marshall at corner. Interesting to see how they're able to stack up. It's always SEC's better than Pac-12, but Utah's been a really good team the last couple of years, and I do think being at home matters in this one. So I think my pick is Utah. You can go check the picks video and article I did at thegamehouse.com. But, Utah should win. Should be a fun game, though, with the rematch element being there as well. It's also good to watch these Power 5 teams schedule kind of these random games. Florida, Utah, you would never think you would see it. The battle of former Urban Meyer schools, but it is a fun one to watch. The battle for the Carolinas is next one up. We have, teams who have played historically a little bit of a rivalry here. They played in the Dukes Mayo Bowl in the 2021 postseason. And we have some teams that I think will be interesting for a couple different reasons. North Carolina, Drake Maye's returning after a fantastic redshirt freshman season. 12 other returning starters. Offense can put up points, but the defense really stunk last year. They need to improve. They ranked 101st for scoring last season. South Carolina started off last year poorly, got hot late in the year. They beat Tennessee and Clemson at the end of the regular season. That really got people hopeful for this year. Spencer Rattler returns at quarterback. Again, he started off the year slow too, and then he came on big time at the end, and that's why they were able to win some games. There's limited returning experience on this team, but they hit the transfer portal hard. They got Trey Knox at tight end. That should be a pretty good player for them. And they also have Juice Wells at wide receiver back from last year's team. That should help the offense. Defense, I'm kind of, some things you got to question. They've lost a lot, but they do have some talent, specifically at the safety position. So interesting to watch that one out there as well. Maybe not college football playoff implications with this matchup, but we have two teams who a lot of people have ranked in their top 25 going in week one. And after not having football for so long, it is a game that is worth watching. We also have Coach Prime's debut at Colorado. Now, everything's been made about the roster turnover at Colorado. A lot of guys are out the door. He's brought in a lot of transfers. There's some talent on this team. Shedeur Sanders, his son, has some FBS offers. Travis Hunter, one of the best recruits in the country who followed him to Jackson State, now follows him to Colorado, plays both ways possibly this year. Did play both ways at Jackson State. It's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him and how that team can come together with so many parts that are just so new. They have so few returning starters, it makes it hard to project what they might do. And they're taking TCU on in the first week, and TCU, team last year that made the college football playoff out of nowhere, this year have a lot of pieces gone from that team, but they do have some talent. They have, Chandler Morris taking over a quarterback. They have Josh Newton taking over a corner. Josh Newton playing corner, who played last year. Would have thought he could have gone to the NFL draft, but decided to return. Really good corner. And then they have a bunch of transfers, guys from like Alabama coming in. They're going to need to see what they can get out of this team this year. There's a lot of, I would say, hype around this team, the TCU team, but it's going to be hard to replace all the guys that lost from last year. So that's why it's interesting to watch. There's a lot of storylines here with Coach Prime. How does TCU follow up from such a good season last year? Definitely worth watching. I think this is on Big Noon Kickoff on Fox on Saturday. The fifth thing is Clemson's offense fixed. So we kind of expect Clemson to beat Duke this week, week one, on Monday night. It's the only Monday night game you're going to see in college football probably this year other than, the postseason. But it's going to be worth watching. It's the only game on. Duke had a good year last year. And we expect Clemson to win. They have the overall talent margin there. But we have to see if this offense improves. They hired Garrett Riley from TCU, who really made that offense really work last year for them and get to the college football playoff. And Clemson has better players than TCU did last year when you go from a talent composite recruiting ranking type of look. So Cade Klubnik at quarterback, taking over for DJ Uiagalelei, who transferred to Oregon State. You have Will Shipley at running back, Phil Maffa backing him up. You have Bo Collins, who was a big-time recruit at wide receiver, Jake Brenningstool at tight end. They have talent. This is Garrett Riley, his chance to show that he can fix this offense, can get the most out of this talent. That's what's been holding him back. They have had good defense over the last couple of years, but it's always been, I think, that offense that's kind of been holding them back. If they can score points this year, Clemson could find themselves right in the playoff, just like TCU did last year with Garrett Riley, but they have so much more potential with all of the talent they have on this roster. So I'm watching in this game. Duke should be able to play them a little bit close, but I do think Clemson wins. But more importantly than maybe even the result is kind of seeing if Clemson's offense shows signs of improvement. Because if they do, again, college football playoff is on the table for this team if it does. All right, let me know what you're watching in college football week one. There's a lot of good games, so make sure to let me know in the comments below. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.